This is Reggie Ford on IG, Reggie Art. This is my story.
This episode is sponsored by Carré Restaurant and Bar, one of the dopest restaurants in the French Quarter located in New Orleans. I promise you, the egg rolls are smoking, the lamb chops are amazing. You will love it. 239 Decatur Street, New Orleans, Louisiana, zip code 70130. I promise you, you have a dope time. Okay, so tell the world, where you from?
Well, I'm born and raised in New Orleans. I grew up uptown in my early years. We stayed right on Magazine Street, right before Magazine got gentrified. So I remember those times in the early 80s living on Magazine Street, walking to Jackson, going to the St. Thomas Project during the summertime months to hang out with my cousins and stuff. So we lived over there, and I'm from across the river also. We lived in Algiers, around when crack first came into the city. Watched crack come into the community, change the community values. I also lived in the Ninth Ward. Lived in the Ninth Ward in the mid 90s, early 90s, and to this day, still in the Ninth Ward. So I live kind of all over the city.
So being all around all these parishes. Also, that's very interesting that you stayed in Algiers, because a lot of people don't know, because they always say Algiers, the West Bank, and all that. But most people don't know that Algiers in the French Quarter was the first place to actually be birthed in New Orleans.
This is absolutely correct.
And also they had one. They tried to build one. Tunnel. Actually took Algiers from the French Quarter. For the slaves.
To get the newly imported slaves that always had to go to Algiers first and then bring them in. Damn, that's crazy.
Yeah, most people don't know that.
I didn't know about that part.
So it'd be funny when I hear people like, man, Algiers, the West Bank and all that, but they don't know that Algiers was here before all y'all hoods.
Algiers was here before all the hoods, and not only that, at that time, Algiers was known for some of the most rebellious Africans. So it was the rowdiest. Yeah. Yes, there's a lot of history over there that's being covered up now. And
also, Algiers and also, if the Garden District is probably like the main places still have in New Orleans, traditional housing.
In the Garden District, you're talking about the historical houses from St. Charles all the way back to the river.
And they have that also if you catch the ferry in Algiers.
Oh, the way it all links together.
Well, the houses,
in the houses, yeah,
the way they built.
That strong architecture, yeah. All those homes were designed around the same time period, and the history of the city is amazing, and I've been studying it for over 30 years just to see Algiers and all those historical homes over there that predates a lot of the homes that's all around the city except for the French Quarter. So yeah, that's correct. Algiers was the first landing point for Africans in America when they had to come to this region.
Gotcha. So staying in all those different parts of New Orleans, what was your favorite place to actually stay at?
My favorite place,
growing
up, personally, for me, was the mid 90s to the late 90s. My favorite place as me experiencing my black community was Algiers. I love the things I learned in Algiers as a child, going to school in Algiers from the first grade to the fourth grade. I learned about arts. I learned about science. I was in the Young Astronauts clubs. And the public schools were handled differently on the West Bank versus the East Bank. So I got my formal training in public school on the West Bank in a sense of how a black community really is supposed to treat each other, because it always felt like it was family on the West Bank and it was less fight and all kind of stuff. But when crack it changed. Around 88, 87, Algiers started to change. But that was my favorite black experience in New Orleans, living in that neighborhood. My favorite personal experience would be the mid 90s.
Gotcha. So how old were you when you actually first discovered art?
When I first discovered art, I was maybe 8 years old or something like that, 7 or 8. When you in a third grade, we just was like my cousin. I had a cousin. I had to be about 7 or 8. I had an older cousin. He used to draw with pens and pencils, and he used to always pride himself that he don't need a pencil. He could draw with a pen because he don't never need the erase because he that good. So I started mimicking what he was drawing, and what he was draw was himself in a prison cell. On his top bunk, and his cellie was sitting on the toilet reading a dirty magazine, taking a shit. And that's the painting he would draw, and ironically, that's where he ended up for a large period of his life. But my cousin introduced me to drawing, and then he got involved in the streets, and he ended up doing maybe 15 years in Angola or something, just like the picture that he showed me depicted. But he was the first person that introduced me to drawing, and what he introduced me to changed my life.
So, I don't know how to answer this question with actually that being said, but do you feel like he kind of like cursed himself? Like actually drawing that painting?
Now that I think about it, he may have. Because what he drew and what he fixated on, became his reality. So maybe he knew where he was headed.
It's kind of like the power of like the tongue, and it's like the power of the art.
It's very powerful.
Right.
And that's, hey man, at that time he was doing bad stuff as a teenager, nothing to do with what he drew. And that's where he ended up. Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah. Well, free him. You know, we got
he out now. He
out now. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
He out.
Well, shout out him.
Yeah, shout out. You know. he's still on the West Bank too.
Okay. So, when did you discover that you was going to become one professional artist?
A professional artist? I decided I was going to be a professional artist. Now I remember that exact moment and where I was walking. I was on Varette Street, walking from Berman Elementary School, and I was leaving class. And in class earlier that day, they asked us to write down our day and what we experienced in my day, in my day. And that day I lost my coat, and I remember trying to write down what I experienced, and I couldn't because I was illiterate. I didn't know how to read or spell. So that moment I knew I was different from the rest of the kids. Later on I would find out that I was dyslexic. That's why I was having troubles reading and spelling. So I knew my route wasn't gonna be college or school. And I was already drawing, and people was liking my drawings. In that moment in time, I made a prayer to God that I would never drink, smoke, or do anything to further damage my computing power, my brain, and that I want to be an artist. And I told God, I'm gonna keep myself clean and try and do my best with the talents that you did give me. I swear, this is what I was thinking as an 8-year-old, 3rd grade, walking down the street. In that moment in time, I decided I'm good at art, but I'm gonna make myself great at art. And that's when I decided I was gonna be who I am right now.
Gotcha. So being who you are right now, everyone takes different paths. Things change. You're an artist but first.
Yeah.
But when did you become the Reggie art that people know you today? Okay. Like the Reggie art that, covers the city of New Orleans and let people know what's going on.
The day I decided to go professional with my artwork, and then I get into the activist stuff too. The day I decided to go professional with my artwork was before Hurricane Katrina. I was in a relationship with a lady, a young woman at the time. We was both in our early 20s. I met her at Xavier. Long story short, she was from Chicago. She went back to Chicago to go to medical school. I went up to Chicago to move there, and I didn't want to be there because it's just too cold, and I had to start all over with my connects and everything, and I already was doing my art thing. So I decided to just part ways with the relationship, and it was the hardest decision I've ever made in my life. It's basically I had to walk away from my wife and pick my career in my hometown. So I parted ways with that. That was about 20 years ago. And from that moment on, I decided I was gonna be a professional artist and live in New Orleans as long as it took. And the first year I became a professional artist, I'll never forget, first 8 months of me being a professional artist, I made about $67,000, and I was like, well, this is what I'm gonna be for the rest of my life, and God must have honored His promise with me of keeping myself clean, away from drugs and everything. Because soon as I got into it, I was successful. It was never a hard day, and everything worked out. So I decided to be professional at that moment. And when I stopped working side jobs and everything and doing art at the same time, it's after Hurricane Katrina. Katrina took everything away, and then I rushed back into the city to only be an artist. So my name just blew up in the art world and in the business world, and doing art for Fortune 500 companies. The activism stuff kind of came later on as social media gave us the ability to share pictures and stories in different ways or forms of communication. At first it was typing, and then it became pictures and stories, and that's what I'm good at, pictures and stories, because to this day I'm dyslexic. I have trouble reading and writing, so my strongest suit is talking and visuals.
Gotcha. So but I call you 5 minutes because everywhere you make it places in 5 minutes. I don't know how you do it. You on a scene of everything in 5 minutes, from the French Quarter to the East. But possibly the West Bank if you got to. So for the people who watching this, how do you make it onto the places so fast?
Damn, that's what my girl said yesterday. Now, I'm no girlfriend, a woman I was enjoying her birthday with yesterday. She said, how you made it from the West Bank to way somewhere else in Kenner in 15 minutes? She's like, it's impossible for you to be here. I used the river and the interstate at different times of the day. I have a clock in my head. Some people see the dials on a clock. I see the inner working mechanism. So I can see the interstates in my head and what time they busy and stuff. So I know the travel, I know what roads to use and who not using them and what ways to go. And I be getting places in 5 minutes. It really worked, but that's the secret. I understand the roads and who gonna be on them.
Gotcha. But speaking of, I'm like women in your life. Yeah. Do you have any, regrets about, leaving, Chicago?
I don't have regrets about leaving my potential wife to pursue my career and do what God called me here to do. I don't regret it, but I have love in my heart for that woman.
Gotcha. So let's get back on art. Most people in New Orleans who haven't experienced New Orleans tourist life would know how big art is in the French Quarter. So I want you to explain how big the art world is in the French Quarter.
Okay. Art has so many levels. There's gallery art, where people come into gallery and make purchases. Then they got high-end gallery art, where people make investments, where they buying things $40,000 to $250,000. I'm talking about they even taking out mortgages to buy art, because the art they buy the art, the interest on the loan may be lower than the art gonna appreciate. So it's almost like you buying a house. Some art pieces could yield more money yearly than a rental property. So that's a part of the game the general public not gonna know about. Then some of the stuff be write-offs, and then some of the art be at street level, like on Jackson Square. It's so many different ways, but New Orleans is the gateway to the world for art, because the French set it up that way, and the way their economy worked. So we still in New Orleans, in America, but New Orleans don't even operate like any other city in America. We still have Spanish, French, and African traditions. So the art world is huge, and you could really come to New Orleans, one of the few places in America, you could come at ground level, on the ground, homeless, and become a millionaire. And I know the road to that if you choose to do that. It just depends on what your values are in life. So it's the art world, the visual art world is big.
And it's butt wide open. You can come right now.
It's still wide open.
I mean, you can come right now, and you can become from homeless to a millionaire.
Yes, you can.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So, for a person like me who really don't understand too much about the art, but I see a lot of millionaires and billionaires buy art for certain reasons. So I want you to kind of explain why one millionaire would actually, invest so much into art.
Some of them using it as investment pieces, like Jay-Z buying a Basquiat that increased in value of millions of dollars the past 5 years. That's one reason some of them buy it. And some of the wealthy buy art. It's like, it'd be like money laundering, man, to be honest with you. And I can't go into like detail publicly about it, but it's money laundering. And they leverage insurance policies against it and stuff like that. But on a Jay-Z level, it's investment. So that's what it is. Now, some people always wonder what gives value to art. The rarity of the artwork, how rare it is, and how unique it is, or how technically difficult it is to achieve what the artist made. Another thing that brings value to art, it could be the most useless piece of art. The only thing that could bring value to it is a credible gallery. So sometimes a credible gallery will get a piece of art that really have no particular value at all, and the credibility of that gallery in its history of selling valuable pieces will give that piece of art value. So it's a game. It's a game sometimes. So some pieces of art really don't have value. It's just a gallery pretending and presenting it to the public as if it have value. And one other thing that gives art value, the person that owned it previously. If Jay-Z take a piece of artwork into his collection and he sell it, it's now worth money. Or some rich, world-renowned family take a piece of art into their collection, or some artist art into a collection, now that artist is famous now.
Gotcha. So, you don't have to say it, but what was your most, what was your most, I want to see the correct word to say it. What's your most
expensive
timeless, expensive art piece that you ever made?
The funny thing is, the most time I ever put into one piece of artwork probably was about 24 hours of work. Did the piece in about 4 days. Now, they got pieces of art that took me 12 hours to make, but the reproductions from it could have possibly earned me half a million dollars over the past few years. And that's how you live off your catalog. You could invest time into making a nice painting and live off the prints forever. Yeah, you could print them. Everybody could keep reprinting this stuff. But I think the most important piece I probably ever done, I probably got like 3 of them that's important to me, and they like odd pieces.
That's what I meant.
It's like my first piece of art, and I still own it.
Yeah, I mean like times like have you ever made some art like, you know what, I'm not gonna sell this?
Yeah, my first piece, and it's timeless. I still sell it today, and people have no idea it was my first piece that I ever painted. Yeah.
So I'm gonna ask you this question. I don't know too much about the art world and how y'all feel about each other, but I'm gonna ask you, who are some of your favorite artists in New Orleans?
Oh, that's another good thing about art in New Orleans and a black artist in New Orleans. We all get along. It's not like other industries, right? And I don't want to just pick on the rappers or the culinary people or the whoever.
Y'all the real artists.
No. They artists. They have the most powerful art form, which is talking over rhythmic beats. But the black men in this city are bonded together, and we work together, and we make each other rich. When I first started this in the 90s, I only knew 3 adult male black artists that was working, that was making money off of art. And 2 of them wasn't even full time, because you had to have a side job back in the day, because people just wasn't buying that much art from black men. Fast forward now, you got fashion houses, they got so many people doing so many art, making so many black brothers making art. So all the brothers are together. But going back into the question of the artists and what we doing as a collective in New Orleans, we all like work together. And my favorite artist is like Terrence Osborne. He's dope. Lionel Milton. He's dope. He came before me. He inspired me. He showed me what was possible. Terrence Osborne, his stuff at Jazz Fest, his stuff with Coca-Cola, Barge Root Beer. He do stuff for major companies. And B Mike, man, he's the next generation doing this thing. So and Tunchi with the ghosts and stuff, his stuff cold. Lord, that boy bad. So he fire. So they got a lot of like so many names now. At first it used to be a handful. Now it's a lot of people. So it's beautiful.
Gotcha. So that being said, let's jump back into, you know, the evidence. Sometimes, you know, people might think that, you know, you're controversial because, you know, you back and forth on Instagram and different things like that.
Yes.
Like, I want you to kind of explain to the people who watching this right now who probably feel like you know, but you misunderstood.
Oh, if anybody have a misunderstanding about where I stand, don't try and understand me. Understand my mission. My mission is black liberation. My mission is to suppress what one would call white supremacy in our government and in our laws. That's all I want, an equal playing field for our people to do what they naturally do and for people to get rich off their natural talents. Or if you want to work for somebody, that you get equal or just pay. That's what I'm trying to do. Now you trying to understand me may be rough because I have a very, very layered past. But that's all I want people to understand. I ain't gonna hurt nobody. And if you misunderstand me, talk to me. Don't try and talk to me through comments. Talk to me in real life. I'm available.
Gotcha. So let's jump on, you know, at one of your most recent and like known things that, you know, people starting to like to know you from.
Okay.
And that's in Lincoln Beach.
Lincoln Beach.
So like actually what piqued your interest for even like wanting to like revive it and like, you know, shake it back?
Throughout my life, I'm always investing my time in bringing things back and bringing things into existence for my people since I was a kid. Whether it was me putting up a basketball court in my community so kids could play basketball. My big brother doing that when we was little kids before Nord started putting basketball goals in the community. I always was invested in building things in my community. Lincoln Beach project, I found out about that during a pandemic. During a pandemic, for the first time in 15 years, I had time to rest. I had time not to think about too much. So I just hung out in a nice luxury hotel for about a month thinking about my life and what I want to accomplish for the community. Because at that point, I've accomplished all my personal goals. I came out of that hotel thinking I could go back to my art job, selling art and making my money. And I made a lot of money. Or I could do something for my community. Now, I really wanted to go to Africa, but I couldn't go because I didn't want to take the vaccination shot. So that eliminated that goal. I wanted to help people in Africa. So I said, I'm going to help people in my community as if I'm helping people in Africa, right here. So I invested my time and my money on Lincoln Beach. And I found out about Lincoln Beach because I saw a brother named Sage. He wanted to clean up Lincoln Beach. He wanted to get it funded, and he wanted to get it open, and he wanted to be the power in the hands of the people. So I came up and helped with plans to get all that accomplished. And we accomplished all the goals except for the actual design and build of the beach, which they're doing now. So I found out about Lincoln Beach around June 1st, 2020. At a suggestion from a friend, she was like, I think you and Sage would make a great team if you go out there and help him clean up. And I went out there and started cleaning up and ended up staying out there cleaning up the beach for over, at one time I was at like 1,300 days straight or something like that. Every day cleaning up. And I invested about $30,000 of my own money into it in my time that I'm away from my actual profession. So I'm 100% devoted to the community and trying to get the beach open. And me, Sage, and Bliss, who've been cleaning up, help attract $24 million to the project. So 3 black people help attract $24 million to this project to get a beach built for the community.
Gotcha. So, you know, being a man for the people in the community, is it possible one day that you're actually going to run for, mayor of the city? The mayor of New Orleans, for to be,
the mayor of New
to be
Orleans.
exact.
I talked with my mother about that. She told me not to do it. I don't have to question my mama. I had to go back and forth. My mom says law. She been knowing me my whole life. So that's it. I will not run. My mother say no.
Gotcha. So I have this question for you, for the city of New Orleans. What do you think that we need to do as a city to help, like, decrease the crime down here?
That's easy. It's already been done. And I watched those efforts purposely be reversed so we could be where we at right now. All this is on purpose. Mark Morial came in 1994 to help quiet some of the crimes we was doing, my generation, I was doing. He brought in summer programs, he brought in jobs for youth, and he took me off the streets and he saved me from Angola. He gave me a chance to put food on my table legally, and he got me out the streets with programs. And the crime decreased and the murders decreased. And he took the adults in New Orleans, mostly black at the time, majority black city at the time, and they had jobs. Now, they wasn't the best jobs. It was in the hotel industry, right? In bar and restaurant. But people was able to make a living. My mama got a job and made better situation for us at our home. So the only thing they got to do is mimic what he did, and the crime will come down. And one thing that we can do as citizens is stop glorifying the use of drugs and stop using drugs. And that'll help some of the crime go down, because you'll have a clear mind and a clear view of self and understand your purpose in life. And that'll drop the crime.
Gotcha. So, being a person that actually, I'm like witnessed New Orleans in 92, 93 versus now, like, what do you think was like, what you think would like separates them? Because both of them at reached their peak. But I tell people the 90s, I know some dudes in the 90s that were just different. Like, I remember, I wasn't in the streets because I wasn't know enough, but I had family was in the streets, and I remember just people getting kidnapped, all kinds of stuff. People don't really get kidnapped like that now, but I'm talking about I heard just stories of the way these dudes moved. You don't really hear about that now, but people are just as ruthless. But just something about the 90s, they just was very, they were kind of masterminds with how they did it.
I know what they were.
Right. So how do you feel?
Yeah,
do you feel like
you're right?
Do you
Great
feel like
observation. I was there.
Right. Cause just if you hear the stories of the dudes in the Magnolia dressing like clowns and the meatballs, and I heard about stories of dudes pulling up in U-Hauls, act like they're selling shoes and rob everybody out there. They just had all kind of stories. You don't hear about that now. It's more of a wild gun firing or some petty beefs, So I want to know what's your what's your observation from back in the day versus now?
It was a different age criminal. Imagine. All right, I was born in '79. The majority of those people who's doing that was born in the mid to early '70s. These were men who grew up without all these drug addictions these young men have now. So these men was less impulsive. They could calculate better. A developed man mind at 25 know how to put a plan together better than an 18-year-old. The part of your brain for cause and effect don't fully develop till you're 25. So you playing with a grown man in the streets that know how to manipulate and do things more covert and less impulsive because he don't have drugs in the system. These new dudes are impulsive. They do it out in open because some of them been doing drugs since they was kids and allowed to do drugs since a kid. That wasn't allowed in the 70s and 80s for the criminals who grew up to be men during the early 90s that you talk about.
But it was allowed in the 90s. I gotta get you right there.
In what time?
So in the early 90s versus now, for my observation,
they were
on heroin. Now they're on pills.
They got on heroin.
They got on heroin, but people got on pills.
I'm
too.
talking about the development of the mind.
Oh, the mind
criminal
was
at the
very
time.
strategic. Yeah.
That's what I say. They already had the wiring of a strategic planner before they started doing heroin as a teenager,
growing up,
or adult. Okay. Where these adults and teenagers been doing the dope since way younger.
Right.
That's why these dudes are more calculated and stuff, and these guys are not. They just impulsive robots on drug. They on go. They on dummy.
On 24 hours.
Now what time was bad or worse? I know the difference in that too. Back then, it got bad in the mid 90s because the drug game started getting saturated. In the early 90s, it was a few drug dealers on the block. And it was wealthy. They was rich, bro. On Canal Street, they were selling big gold chains like this. They got smaller and they got smaller. And the value of them got less and less. These dudes were so rich they could buy all that stuff. You know, the drug dealers used to dress business casual, Gucci, pressed clothes. So it was a different person doing different things, different times. So that's why, and men was more hands-on back then too. We knew how to fight. We lift weights. We trained. You were more trained and more physical. That's why the kidnapping on. Nowadays, they just little dudes. They probably, some of them, I ain't gonna say all of them, some of them not even physically able to do some of the stuff these guys was doing. Some of them are only able just to use the gun to dominate.
Right. And I always, but every time I see every time I feel like I have enough reach in like a relationship to actually talk to someone who I feel like younger in the streets and doing stuff, I always tell them, one thing I was always taught as a kid, before I jump off the porch, I gotta be willing to accept every consequence that come with that. So now I don't think no one gives that game to these young dudes. So like when they go out there and kill someone, they don't think about, when I go to jail, you might run across that person's family member who been in there so long, who been waiting for you to actually do something crazy out there. To actually meet somebody like them, you gotta either know how to fight, or you gotta know how to work that knife in there. Ain't no gun.
Ain't nothing but physicality.
Okay. It have some men that can overbear you and take your knife from you.
Seen it done.
Yeah, because it's like, a lot of these, if a lot of these killers not really big, they like 5'4", 5'5". If you run across somebody who's been lifting weights since 20 years old in prison and 6 foot something, 9, 10 they gonna be stronger than you and gonna be able to like out muscle you. So even if you do get that one little stab, they gonna take your knife from you. So it's like, I tell people, you gotta be ready for everything that come with this.
They not thinking, because they thinking with the boy brain and not the man brain. They didn't get a chance to develop their strategic thinking.
And also one thing I can say about the 90s and now, it was more consequences back in the day. So basically, if like an older dude or like somebody who really made some money, if you play with them, they gonna make sure you feel it, and not just you gonna feel it through your family members and everything. They going to make example out of you. Now it's more of, you just trying to get the person, but like a person had to make you feel it actually before they came to you.
Yes, that's exactly what was going on. It was consequences by the community. I know. I got in trouble before. And also and had the experience.
And also the community, this is what also changed. Like once, I'm gonna say my generation, I'm 36. And once we were the last ones taught by OGs. Because after us, we didn't teach the youth. So it's kind of our fault. So basically, soon as we stopped teaching, but the respect level left. Because we were taught the same thing as them. Like, even if you selling drugs on the street, you see an older person, you kind of move along. Yeah. You kind of like, you kind of still have respect. Yeah. Nowadays, these people robbing a grandma and everything, like that was unheard of. Like you couldn't touch nobody, grandma. You moved around, especially because everybody was like a close knit community in any hood. Because it really took a village. Like a village raised you because everybody was in each other's house. Now I don't I don't know what's going on. I don't know if these kids growing up in each other's houses are like back in the day, but the respect level is gone.
Respect level is gone, and it actually started leaving around the late 90s. Subtly. But I understand.
I'm gonna say it fully left.
Nah, it's
Maybe
fully
07, 08.
Yeah.
As soon as we came back from Katrina.
And it started in 97 from my observation. By the way the younger kids was talking to their teachers in class. And I said, you would never talk to the teacher like that.
Yeah,
and if you did, somebody in the class would have bat you in the head for even talking to the teacher like that. It always was a pecking order in discipline. But these kids, they don't be respecting nothing. You're absolutely right. And I think they don't respect nothing because a lot of them didn't have fathers. Their fathers was in jail or out the house, and they seen their mothers do things that a woman shouldn't do in front of them. So that brings down a person's respect level for the things around them and themselves.
I spoke on this earlier, and I just made like a reel for it. I ain't never put it out yet, but I spoke on how much importance it is for a young male, white or black, needs a father figure in the household. But a mother cannot raise a boy by herself. At that age, 10 to 16, he's going to show you that you can't raise him by yourself.
Yes, his testosterone is going to do that. Because a man is not a woman, and a woman is not a man. We have testosterone in us. Testosterone make us do things that's just not even logical. It make us, I don't know, man. It's just the way God made us. And there's no reversing or trying to retrofit that with a woman. You need both.
Right. But you old enough to actually see the change in the communities with the crack and with the crack on the epidemic, and also with the black father epidemic. Like once Section 8 start, like most people don't realize when Section 8 start hitting in, they start kicking the black father out the household.
That's right.
But everybody don't like some people don't see that, but I kind of do my little research to kind of know it's like it was kind of like when I'm like hitting on like agenda against the black male in America.
Well, there's always a hidden agenda against the black male in the black family household. My mother was on the same program. She would have to, and we would have to hide my daddy's articles so we could stay on the program. So I understood that, and at the same time, it made me feel a certain way. It made me feel like I never let this government govern anything that moves under my roof. That would make me so independent thinking too. Not saying something's wrong with my father. I'm just saying I wouldn't allow that to go on under my roof. But at the same time, my dad stayed in our life and made sure he was in our life and a positive person in my life, and he always had integrity. So no matter how the government positioning you or positioning your woman, you gotta stay next door, down the street, or even in that house, even if you pretending like you're not in that house. There's no getting around that.
You gotta put your clothes next door.
That's it.
You gotta put them in your car.
And it worked.
Right. Gotcha. So tell the world, I'm like, what's next for you?
What's next for me? I'm just making sure they don't misappropriate these 24 million that we help attract to the Lincoln Beach project, and making sure the city that I live in and that we pay taxes in use that money to benefit the community. So I'm staying nearby, and I'm in the process of selling my house, cashing in on that, reinvesting to New Orleans East. So I'm in a Bywater, the spot that got gentrified. They didn't gentrify me out. I'm leaving my community with a bag of money, and I'm gonna reinvest into some properties in New Orleans East. That's my plan. And buy some homes around Lincoln Beach, because I anticipate those homes are gonna go up in value. And I also wanna go travel Africa extensively and get my health in order. So I gotta go do a lot of stuff and get my health in order. I got some medical issues I gotta get straightened out. No STD related type shit, but I got neurological problems and stuff that I gotta go see a specialist for. So that's my goal, to get healthy and continue to invest in myself and my community.
Gotcha. And also, last but not least, tell the world, I'm like, what can he find you on social media and everywhere else?
Hey man, if you won't find me, I'm always selling art on Jackson Square every weekend. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. And if you ever really want to check in on me, just go to IG and look up Reggie Art, and you'll see me. I'll be on there some kind of way.